Okay, I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for January 17th, 2018, and we're coming to order. Thank you. We're coming to order at 7 o'clock. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order now. Just for the people in the audience, this is a little more informal meeting. It's more of an information sharing and preparing us for the next public meeting. So you'll see it's a little bit different than the typical public council meeting. Which brings us to item 2, the confirmation of agenda. Councillor Sobel?
I have nothing, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer?
I have nothing to add, Your Worship.
Councillor Montgomery?
I have nothing to add, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
I just have a question somewhere.
Question for administration or to?
Yes.
Okay, that was.
Where do I put it?
That was vague enough.
6.7. How about 6.6? Do we already have a 6.6?
Yeah, we have a
Or should we just pass it
6.6 was,
Remember that? Okay, yep. 6.7, Your Worship.
okay, thank you. And did you have anything else?
No.
I just
Thank you.
wanted to come back. Councillor Montgomery has forgotten an item, if we can just have him added.
I guess it'd be part of maybe 6.1, if I could just, there's a member of the public that would like to ask a few questions regarding the odor.
Councillor Corbeil?
I would also actually like to add 6.8, just a question.
Okay. Thank you, and I have nothing. So I'm looking for a motion, oh, sorry, I always forget, Legislative Services, Jen.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 2 additions. Item 3.1, Wheatland Society of the Arts, and item 6.6, Lambert Park Rose Garden.
Thank you for that. So I'm looking for a motion to confirm the agenda as amended. Councillor Corbeil?
I move confirmation of the
Agenda
agenda.
as amended?
As amended, yeah.
That'd go. Thank you.
Thank you. Amended was the word I was
good.
looking for.
You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And the motion is passed, which brings us to item 3.1, a delegation, and we have the Wheatland Town and Society of the Arts. I want to make sure I get that correct. Society of the Arts.
It's a mouthful.
Yes, with Brandy Hebbs is here to speak before us. So welcome, Brandy.
Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. Is this thing working? Anyways, you can hear me. I'd like to thank you for letting us come here this evening and making room for us. I had sent out extensive notes to Jennifer and she was to pass them on to you, so I'm not going to just ramble on about stuff that you've probably already read. There was a summary in there of our outcome, of our measurables that we were supposed to deliver given our agreement with the council and the town. I just wanted to take a few minutes to relate that to our outcome measures, and we had some goals set for the 6-month kind of time frame, and I just wanted to quickly relate how those fit to those goals. I think we've actually met them all, which is kind of awesome. So the first one was an executive director is hired and coordinating everything. We do have an executive director, and he's deeply involved with the Wheatland Society of Arts, both in a paid capacity and he does a lot of volunteer work. He's very familiar with all aspects of Wheatland Society of Arts, and he's a solid contact for any public inquiries and people that need to get in touch with someone to ask questions, so that's nice. But he does not coordinate the day-to-day activities. It's just too much, given we pay him for 100 hours a month, and it's just too much, so we use his time elsewhere. So he does not, probably never will, actually coordinate all the day-to-day stuff. He's more valuable in other areas, so the rest of us on the board, we look after that still for the most part. He does have a lot of input and recommendations and stuff like that too, but he doesn't do it day to day. He has a couple big murals lined up for the summer that should help us gain exposure. These are not through Wheatland Society of Arts specifically. They're actually his personal projects, which he'll just work with us very closely to help us get exposure as well. But same thing, we just didn't have the capacity to be the middleman on something like this, and he's the professional technician, so those murals are directly through him, but he'll be leaning on Wheatland Society of Arts quite a bit, and we'll go back and forth on that. So the second goal was a measurable increase in traffic through the studio and at programming, and holy smokes, have we knocked that out of the park. Last year at this time, we had about 20 members, and 7 of those were board members, and a pretty limited offering for arts classes. As of today, we have 94 paid members, but that's only a small part of it. We have probably at least double that people that take art classes that don't take a membership. We don't require youth to have a membership, or seniors, or the disabled. There's a lot of people that we don't actually, well, actually for any of our program, we don't require to have memberships, so there's probably at least double that in people that participate but don't have an actual membership. And then there's just people that come and go through the gallery that don't actually do art, they're just in the gallery. So that's very exciting. I did include a lot of backup. If you're curious at all, there's a detailed outlines of all that we do offer, and then there's our registration lists too, just if you're curious, like how many are repeating and how many are new people. But you will find there's a strong core of regular art people. There's just people that's that important too, but there's also a lot of people outside of that. And our focus is still to continue to expand our service base. We don't want to just offer more for the same group of people. We need to offer more to bigger and bigger spheres of people and different demographics and all that kind of stuff. So we really work towards that. So the third goal is that the gallery was operational and accepting art by now, and it's going full steam. We display amateur and professional art. And this ties into goal 4. Our art and business platform is being initiated. It's more than initiated, it's solidly in place, and we're going pretty hard on that too. We have art displays in a couple businesses, and we've got some requests right now for businesses that would like some art displays. As well, our executive director helped the municipal library get their art display up and going, and he keeps in touch with them. He's quite a technician in that aspect. And so the 5th goal was that we by now would have identified groups and individuals with which to create collaborations and working partnerships. We've made a lot of contacts towards this, and some of them are developed, some of these collaborations are developed more than others. What I did find is that it takes a long time to put these things together, especially considering not just us, but all the other groups have so much to do with all their people and time also, that takes some planning to get groups together, to have time for each other, to see how they can fit together, even knowing that it's mutually beneficial and less work for both once you get it going. It's just that time commitment and energy commitment to get it going. But we definitely haven't lost sight of that. That's very important to us, to help other groups as well. And so as far as the identified measures, those were the 5, and we've made it to all of them, so that's exciting. Just for a bit of a financial review, I included a lot of backup on that also, our entire balance sheet. It's just, everything's out in the open for us. In fact, if you have any recommendations, if you see something, feel free to tell me. And then a month-by-month comparisons too for the expenses and revenues and stuff like that. And naturally, the outflow of money is still bigger than the inflow, which is pretty predictable in a service group, I would imagine. And so a lot of that is going to need like grants and fundraising and stuff like that, which we're getting into also. We do have a lot of near free or free programming. We didn't really set out to address this, but it's sort of exposed itself of a real need. You can never do too much free stuff in this town, I don't think. But what we are doing is scooping up, I think a lot of the, just got like a day or two ago, that we got declined for our community initiatives project grant. That was quite a blow. We were very optimistic about that. We worked pretty hard on it, and we had a lot of support, and they declined it fully. They didn't even give us partial. So that was quite a blow. However, we'll just buckle down and move on. We'll modify some strategies, find some smaller grants, and we will reapply for that CIP grant. They actually have quarterly intakes, so we'll just take another approach. And I've phoned there to see if anyone can give me some pointers on how it could be better or more favorable to get the funding, and no one really tells you anything. It's just, oh, we had such large volume and a lot of worthy projects were declined, the old. So we just got to take it upon ourselves to take another approach and try it again, and we'll keep doing that until they give us some. And then we're planning fundraisers too. Our first one will be in March. Just started planning that, so I don't have too much details about that. We're also doing a volunteer appreciation, kind of a come and go thing towards the end of February to appreciate not just our volunteers, but people like you. You will all be invited, so you can come in, and especially some of the counselors that don't really know what we're up to, you can come down and have a look around and see what we're doing there and ask questions and meet some of us people and let some of us people meet you and a little more in person, so that'll be fun. So I guess in summary, the last few months have been quite a journey. Holy smokes, it takes a lot of work to do something like this, especially for just a small group of volunteers, wow. But we've got a lot done, and we're growing like really fast, really fast. It's really exciting, and it's really scary. It's, it's crazy. Anyways, I'm not sure if we're getting everything right, but we're trying our hearts out, and I think we're getting it right enough of the time that we're actually making a difference in our community if we talk to people and see what we're doing down there and the increase in traffic. So that is extremely motivating for us, and we're just going to keep better. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Sobel?
Thanks. Congratulations, and thank you for the report, Brandy. It's a great report. It's, you can like write the book for other departments that want to report to us, because everything's here. And congratulations on your success. And I think there's a lot of success that you guys have realized, and I think with your enthusiasm and your abilities, I think that's going to continue. So I have high hopes to see this continue on. One quick question for you. I see on one of these pages, somewhere halfway in the report, there's an area that talks about other commitments, and 23rd and 24th of December it says casino. Is that 17 or 18?
We were actually set to work a casino in the third quarter of 2018, so June, July, August kind of deal. July, August, September. But they had nobody for the Christmas dates, like this
Oh, I see.
2017.
Yeah.
And so they just fire out an email to everybody, and so we did that
Oh,
one
great.
instead, just to get the money in earlier.
Sure.
And yeah, so that's over and done with. Phew, that's,
You haven't realized those dollars yet, I would
yeah,
imagine.
those will probably show up now, probably end of February, early March, rather than next,
Yeah.
pretty much February. Well, I guess it'd be next November if we had stayed on track with our original. So that's well needed with the CIP
Sure.
grant
Yeah,
falling through.
exactly.
So it buys us some more time to apply to the CIP grant again and research some other grants and stuff too. I just believe it'll never be completely self-sustaining without
Grants and
getting the grant money or other funding or whatever. So we really have to get a handle on a smooth process for finding these and submitting them. And then the follow-up paperwork is killer. Like, you get a $2,000 grant and it's 4 days worth of follow-up paperwork. And so we need to really get a system in place to make sure we can deal with that, because it's going to be key to our success, I believe.
thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you for your, oh, sorry, Councillor Montgomery.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank and commend you, you and your group for all the hard work that you guys do. And I believe that you guys play a very important role in this this town, and you guys bring, like I'd say, a depth of culture, I guess, that we need here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. I would echo Councillor Montgomery's comments and Councillor Sobel's. Congratulations on your growth. And I love the idea that you're able to provide programming that's available for all ages. And if you've got teens and preteens coming in and it's very affordable for them, you're doing a great service too. So keep up the good work. And I'm very happy that arts is being supported and taking off the way it is. So good job.
Thank you. I'd like to thank council for supporting us too. That's meant the world to us.
You're welcome.
Your Worship, I just have one other question.
Sure.
I'm just wondering, maybe through the chair to administration, would it be possible for some of our staff, I know we have staff that are fairly knowledgeable in regards to grants, to review the SIP grant once the next time it comes through, and perhaps lend some advice if there was any in regards to you know, it could be just a point where they've just got too many applications, but if we could lend their expertise, and then I'm not talking about writing the grant, but I'm talking about reviewing it.
Yeah, we could help them. I think the point is taken, there's a lot of oversubscription in grants like that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, you guys should,
Yeah.
We were pretty disappointed. Even partial, we thought, like lots of times they don't give the full amount you ask for, but yeah,
because you guys, you had everything else.
that was, I thought, quite an application, but.
Yeah. So perhaps, Brenton, oh, I'm sorry, you saw it, James? Oh, okay, well, then obviously we reviewed it.
Well, I mean, but it was a good,
So is there a specific contact, like as we're writing grants, should we request a certain person, or who would we direct those inquiries to, just to look it over?
yeah, we talked to Tracy.
Okay,
We can look at them, and sometimes, I don't know, it's just a luck of the draw.
okay,
Any way we can help with
that'd be excellent, thank you.
25,000.
We applied for the full 75,000, yeah, for the operating grant that would have lasted 2 years. It was supposed to- Sure would have been. That's
Pull a
okay.
fast one on apply for
To
7.
your credit, they really did put in a lot of work.
Sure.
I think you guys did a really amazing work, and like you say, it pays, but I'm really surprised.
I was kind of surprised, but we'll just do it again. It's what happened is what happened. We'll take another look at it and maybe come at it from another angle, and they'll get sick of us and give us some.
Tracy, did you want to add a comment?
I would just mention that one of the great pieces of advice I have about those grants is getting your MLA to look at it and seeing if there's any support they can provide.
He wrote us a actual letter of support, both the MLA and the MP, so I don't, but maybe something more specific or something. Yeah, that would be excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in, and thank you for your report.
Thanks.
Which brings us to item 4 on the agenda, the confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the December 13th, 2017 Committee of the Whole meeting. Councillor Bauer.
I move to approve the minutes of the December 13th, 2017 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? The motion is passed. Item 5, unfinished business. I don't believe we have anything. Councillor Sawatsky. Ms. Sawatsky.
Perfect, no.
You know, you just want to have one night where there's no mistakes.
Your worship, we require a motion to move into committee.
Right, thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to go into Committee of the Whole. Councillor Corbeil?
I move we go into committee of the whole.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? And we are now in Committee of the Whole. So item 5 is unfinished business. Item 6, items from administration. 6.1, the odor concerns and air quality monitoring test results. So Chuck, you're stepping forward for this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So I will be presenting on behalf of the infrastructure and development team. So just an overview of the PowerPoint presentation tonight. We have the smell and odor issue. First up, followed by the air quality monitoring test results. And then number 3, Q&A and discussion. I think it's committee of the whole, so feel free to interrupt me at any time. Comments, questions, if you want me to repeat anything. I've kept this kind of similar to the press release that was released yesterday. I have about 16 slides for you tonight. It's a little text heavy, I'm sorry. Usually I like to include a picture or video or something like that, but couldn't do it this time. So like I said, I'm a planner with the Infrastructure Development Services team. I'm happy to present this tonight. We wish to thank the public for submitting the citizen communication forms and all the information to help us find the culprit here. And also thanks for attending tonight in person and via the live stream. So the smell and odor issue, just the background, we're an agricultural town. We do get the odd smells. I grew up here associated with livestock and manure, that kind of thing. Our town is growing. There is more stuff happening. There's more industrial development and more commercial development. And we have more waste than we originally did in 2015. But this is definitely a new smell though. So the citizen communication concerns kind of came with a new smell in the late summer, early fall of 2017. We had 8 communication forms submitted to our office. They were largely from Parkview, downtown, Green Meadows, and the Ranch. Concerns vary from new residents of Strathmore to people that have lived here from 10 years or more. And it was that 10 years or more that kind of flagged something on our end saying, hey, you know, these guys kind of know what they're talking about, so we had to look into it. The issue is very serious to us, and action has been taken. There was a big press release, both on Facebook and website yesterday. So staff and facility operators met throughout the summer, fall, and winter to confirm the source of the smell. We inspected and investigated several different suspected sources. There's composting, manure spreading, adjacent agricultural activities, water bodies. There's lots of different smells throughout Strathmore that we checked out. From observations from town staff and meetings with EPCOR and Huckstead, we identified a main culprit. We concluded that it was a specific biosolid composting pile located in the Huckstead Waste Recycle Yard south of Highway 1 near the EPCOR wastewater treatment plant. Huckstead waste facility operators dug into the pile and discovered that the aeration equipment that supplies oxygen to the pile had unknowingly broken down, resulting in the pile going off or bad, kind of like you leave something in the fridge for too long. Also contributing to the problem were wetter biosolid loads from the wastewater treatment plant. So I guess there's a centrifuge that spins this stuff, and we got some wetter loads versus drier loads that contributed to the problem. And in short, it was the composting process that broke down. The pile was too hot, and there was no oxygen to this pile, and the odor was a direct result of that. So that's kind of the background, and this is the solution that we kind of came up with together. So facility operators have fixed the aeration pipes delivering oxygen to this pile. Whoops. They've also broken down this bad pile into smaller piles to allow for easier management. Facility operators are also exploring new odor reducing techniques such as biofilters. And our facility operators will be kind of commenting back and forth with one another to identify these wetter biosolid loads. So on the town's kind of point of view, we'll be temporarily trucking the biosolids to a licensed secondary site to support our facility operators in addressing the on-site composting process and kind of give them more time to address this pile that's gone off. So the town is required to have a secondary site by Alberta Environment. It's a good thing we're shipping it to them. Town will continue to monitor odors, of course. And just another important note that Alberta Environment and operational OH&S performed a site inspection at the Huckstead Waste Yard in the fall of 2017. And we also did some air quality tests to confirm which is up next. So moving forward, I think it's safe to say that, you know, if you're a citizen or member of the public, please submit any more information that you have regarding odors using the citizen communication forms. That's the most effective way to do it. Rather than posting on Facebook. But please include the time of day, the temperature, and the wind direction on these forms. I was informed that the biosolids have began to be trucked away, I believe, yesterday. So the situation should be improving. So I think that's all I have for the kind of smell and odor issue before getting into air quality. I'm happy to stop here for questions, or I can continue. I just have 3 more slides with air quality monitoring test results. So AGAT Labs was consulted in the summer 2017 to do some air quality tests for us. I just want to thank the Strathmore Fire Department, Trent and John, for doing this work. I'm just reporting on their behalf. They did a lot of this work to get this set up. So we had an air quality monitoring trailer set up in June. We also had additional volatile organic compound, VOC equipment was installed in July and then later again in October. I've got a map on the next slide showing where those test results or test locations were, and also water was tested. So here's the only photo that I have for you tonight. This is a map of our air quality testing equipment. So this was in the summer of 2017. So the red dot on there is our air quality monitoring trailer. It's the biggest kind of trailer that we had set up. And the circles on the map don't represent the area tested. They're just the location of the testing equipment. It tests for miles, this stuff. Okay, and the green ones are the VOC testing canisters. So there's 3 VOC canisters there, 2 in the north, 1 in the south. The kind of pink/purple are our water testing locations, 2 in Kinsman Park and 1 in Strathmore Lakes. And just the R means that test was repeated again in October 2017. So we took 3 VOCs in the summer, and then we came back in October of 2017 and took those site locations again, readings from those ones. So that's our map. Again, the circles don't represent area tested, they're just the locations. Here's the results. So we tested for things like H2S, SO2, and 66 other VOCs, just standard testing, stuff like that. I'm not going to read the whole quote from Chris at Golder Associates, but he said, in short, the monitoring data did not come back with anything too concerning. They were all kind of relative for background concentrations of the stuff that we measured. And again, our report covers the stuff that was done in the summer. We just have the raw data from the two repeated tests in October. We didn't get a report for those ones, but we do have the raw data available. Just glancing at it from a planner's point of view, I didn't see anything that stuck out with that raw data. And then Golder Associates, they're the folks who wrote the report, the 70-page report for us. They'll be happy to come speak to us if we need more information or if we want to do another test. Again, no concerns were brought forward in this report from the June and August 2017 tests. There's a full 70-page report on air quality, which is available to council at any time to view. And just kind of a wrap-up for tonight. So this is a very serious issue to council, administration, and staff. We systematically kind of narrowed down the search to find the culprit here. Action has been taken by facility operators in the town. It was the oxygen pipes, the unknown breakdown of these oxygen pipes that kind of contributed to this pile going bad. They have been repaired, and the pile has been broken down into smaller chunks to allow for better management of this pile. And then our facility operator is also investigating biofilters. The town's point of view, biosolids will be temporarily shipped out of town for a pilot project to support our facility operators in getting the pile process kind of under control. Again, we'll continue to monitor odors. There was no air quality test concerns brought forward with our tests and report. And again, we just wanted to thank the public for using those CCFs, those forms, and talking with us and kind of helping us find the direction and find this culprit odor. So if you do submit a CCF, please include the temperature, wind direction, and time of day. Again, the biosolids were moved out of town yesterday. I think that's all I have prepared. Infrastructure Development Services, my team would be happy to answer any questions. I know that there's a few people from the public here that want to speak too, so we'll leave it in your hands. Thank you for listening. Again, sorry for the text-heavy presentation.
Thank you, Chuck. Councillor Sobel?
Thanks, Your Worship, and thank you, Chuck, for that.
Thank you.
That was good. So, I just want to clarify. First of all, I appreciate and I support the idea of moving the biosolids out of town for a period of time until everything gets cleared up. So that brings me to two questions. One is, so the issue here was although the quality of the biosolids may have been an issue, the biosolids themselves have been used for considerable time without any concern. This was a hiccup in the process that created the odor. But in theory, there should be no issue with having biosolids composted. Is that your understanding? Am I right off?
So, Your Worship, to Councillor Sobel, thank you for raising that point. That's an excellent point. The biosolids pilot project, the recycling of the biosolids pilot project started in 2015, and there's been little to no issues with that program as far as we know up until this one. But they have been successfully treated at that facility for, I think, over 2 years.
Okay.
Yep,
So thanks. So move, and I would suggest, correct me if I'm wrong again, that moving the biosolids right now for the 6-month trial period is not going to have any effect on any order that is presently in existence. And I appreciate that there remains an order, although not as strong, there still remains an order. So my question is, if that's correct, how long can we anticipate that this order will remain before it's under control, so to speak?
Absolutely. So through the chair to Councillor Sobel, again, an excellent question. I can give a great answer to half of that, but I might ask my team for the other half. I know that you're correct, removing the biosolids out to help our contractor facility get control of this pile, and we're breaking down this bad pile into smaller piles, and I believe adding more carbon. As far as the odors and timeline of those odors breaking down, I might pass off to my team if that's okay. Just, I know it's being broken down into smaller piles, but
talking to Colin here, he hasn't really got the biofilters installed yet because the wind direction has been from the south the last week, or a week and a half, so he didn't want to open up the pile and release a huge smell across the whole town. So in order to minimize the odor, he's waiting for better wind conditions to actually install the top of the biofilters on top of the piles. So when we do that, there will be an odor when he opens those piles up. So we're trying to, make sure that we have a strong north wind or, west wind, so we're not going to be affecting many residents or people when we do that. So yes, there will be an odor. And then to your question, I think the process is it 40 days that you're go through the treatment?
Yeah,
The first couple
Oh.
weeks are the most crucial.
I was just going to say, I saw Mr. Huxton with his hand up too. I wonder if we could allow
Sure.
him to speak as well.
Mr. Huxton.
In addition to what,
What Mark said is exactly what the problem has been. We wanted to open that pile up and get working on it, but the winds have been the wrong direction for us every day, and it just keeps coming this way. So we have put more carbon on top of it. It's working like a filter. It has knocked it down a lot. But if I just had 2 days where the wind was right or no wind, we could have that knocked off and there will be no more issues. I also think it's very important that I mention, we did start it, like Chuck said, in 2015. We've had no issues until this happened. Will it happen again? No, I won't allow it to happen. We have more safeties, belts put in place, so it won't. And something I think that should be known is that we have been doing this for cost for 2 years, and we have saved the town of Strathmore between $150,000 and $200,000 in the last 2 years. We're not making money doing the biosolids. It was just something we felt we should be doing, giving back to the town.
just as a follow-up, and I know other people want to talk, but I think that's a very important area, that these biosolids, they were costing us a lot of money to try. I can't remember where we were trucking them to, but we were trucking them quite a distance.
Penhold.
Yeah, Penhold, yeah, exactly. To find a local business and a facility that could do what they're doing, really has, and I'm aware that we've saved a lot of money, so thanks for that. And would you also just want to comment about the covers that you've ordered, Mr. Huxted? I understand there's some covers that there's going to be an additional safeguard.
We have doing some research into the gore covers. They can come. I have not ordered them at this time. We're researching them. I'm waiting to see what's happening here tonight, but when we decide if the biosolids are coming back or when they're coming back, these covers can go on there and they will eliminate 97% of the odor. The way we're going to be looking after this pile that went bad, we'll be basically doing the same thing, but it's just a lot more labor intensive and equipment. But there's lots of composting done right in cities and stuff that this didn't need to happen. It just happened. It was a perfect storm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Huxted. Councillor Sobel. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to Chuck for that excellent presentation. I just want to be clear, so no trucking of any biosolids has left Strathmore yet, is that correct?
No, that's not correct. We have started shipping
When did the shipping start?
First load went out today.
Okay,
around noon or something, right?
Yeah, it was 1:15.
and so that was from the EPCOR plant, or that was from
From the
the,
EPCOR plant. We
the
produce-
pile, the bad pile?
From the export plant, we produce about 30 tons of biosolids a week, roughly.
Thank you. And was the air quality test done deliberately because of the smell, or was it done as that it's done on an annual basis and it would have been done anyways?
The ones in October were definitely done because of this smell.
Yeah.
The ones done in the summer were done for other smells that were coming, we believe, from the south, coming up from the northeast, I guess. So there was some testing done at that time, but the ones in October were done specifically related to this smell, trying to track it down and identifying it. And also, so we do not have a regular annual program for checking smells.
The only last thing I wanted to say was that I'm although the citizen communication forms were very well received, I'm disappointed that there were only 8. There was so much traffic on Facebook and other things, and I really would like to see how we can do a better job of getting people to go to those citizen communication forms rather than using public social media as their venting process.
Not just for a venting point, for us, as you know, I'm an engineer, so having the data set, knowing when, where, and when they smelt it, and the wind direction, helped us, when we actually got those points, we were able to see it, and it wasn't an easy thing to find, because you went right next to the piles, and there was no smell. You walk around them, there was no smell, but it was venting off the top, and it was pluming. The smell was kind of like a plume off the top of it, and it was impinging over, so it was really hard to correlate exactly where it was. So it was very helpful, because once you got tracking, you could see that, and you can kind of, you start looking on a map and a contour map, and you start seeing this stuff, it really helped us. So it really was the citizen communication forms that at the end helped us really narrow it down.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Montgomery.
Like if no other councillors have any questions, I would like to invite Josh Metz to come and ask some questions.
Thank you.
Sorry, just at work all day and I just have them on my phone. I just had a few questions there for the town. In regards to the compost station that's set up in the Epcar yard through Huckstead, I would like to ask the town, and if the town's willing to go on record, as well as Mr. Huckstead himself, if the composting facility is registered, operated, and built to the requirements set out in the Code of Practice composting facilities made under the Environmental Protection Enhancement Act, RSA 2000 CE-12.
Yes, it is.
And I also confirmed that I contacted Alberta Environment yesterday, and they confirmed that it's a Class 1 facility and it meets the Code of Practice as she was the registered person that actually registered it.
Okay, because I know one of the requirements that stayed out in it, I believe it's section 2-1-C, says it's supposed to involve constant monitoring of air quality. And at this point, for air quality, it seems to be the only monitoring that's happening seems to be the citizen complaint forms.
Actually, I read that form and I actually asked for clarification. 2.1 only applies if it's a vessel. It does not apply for static open piles.
That's under the facility construction. I'd like you to look back at that, actually. If you take a look at the operating, it does recommend that you do have air monitoring.
But in the Code of Practice, under 2.1, or the section 6.2, it states that air quality monitoring and control is required when it's in a vessel. And I specifically asked that same question because I read the Code of Practice in detail the other day, and I wanted to get some clarification. And I saw the word vessel, and it was kind of interesting because Code of Practice is not an approval; it's a registration. So if you're under 20,000 ton, it's a registration under the Code of Practice if you meet the requirements. So.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you for reading that now. I'm glad you managed to catch up now. One of the other things that
If I could just interject here, if we're going to allow you to speak
Fair
in
enough.
public, and we don't have to do this,
Fair enough.
we're doing this as a courtesy, so I expect you to be courteous to our staff too.
No, absolutely, and I do apologize for that. It's just something that's a bit passionate trying to live with, right? So, so the other question, and I'll keep them short and sweet here, is what will change in the gas composition coming from the compost, the removal of the biosolids?
The gas, like what's coming off the smell?
Correct.
Based on the research that we've conducted, and based on best practices, the biofilters, the wood shavings and the way they're constructing will actually absorb the noxious fumes, right? And it has been approved in other facilities, EPA, Environmental Protection in the United States, the Canadian, there's different methods. Are we gonna monitor this? Yes. We're not the operator, obviously, and I can't speak for the actual operation of that, but based on the research we've done, it should work.
Mr. Huckstead, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would. We're open to a tour anytime you want to come through and see how we're operating and what we do and what
Okay.
our procedures are.
Thank you very much.
Alberta Environment did come out and we went There's 13 of these Class 1 sites in Alberta, and he ranked us at one of the top. The issue with smell, I feel terrible that that had to happen. We live north of town, and we got one out there too from another facility that had problems. And it is terrible, and it doesn't need to happen. I feel terrible that this happened to me. It was a mistake made by an operator who had driven on top of that bed and broke the pipes. We weren't aware of that. And then it was, like I said, it was a perfect storm. We had some bad loads. And when I say bad loads, they're not bad loads. They're a wetter product, and we should have had a smaller sawdust so that it would mix more with it. But I would be more than happy to show you and take you all through it and show you the safety and how serious we are with it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And the other questions I have through the information that was given out earlier, my questions were answered, so thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming forward, and hopefully you've got some of the answers that you were looking for. What I wanted to say just is,
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Thacker, you can just step in. What I'm really happy about is that, and very impressed with, is that we were able to get all the parties involved in one room and to discuss and come up with solutions for it. And I learned a great deal last week, so I really appreciate Mark and his staff and Mr. Huckstead and his staff, as well as EPCOR. And one of the things that I learned was that we're going to have far better communication between, what's going to come out of this is far better communication between the EPCOR Corporation and Huckstead's, and they'll be able to basically tell quite quickly if the percentage of the biosolids is the appropriate mix as far as dealing with it in the compost piles. And I think that's going to be a really good thing coming out of this. I think we're going to have some time now with the biosolids being trucked away for us to get that compost pile under control. You guys have already made them into smaller ones. You've added the carbon biofilters. So I think we've really worked hard to address it, and I think anytime you can get the different bodies together in one room and working together and not pointing fingers and really working to solve the problem, I think we've come a long way in a short time, and I really understand and I appreciate the public being frustrated. I think all of us who live in town too, we felt the same way. What I was very happy about is during the Christmas season when it started to really peak, the town staff, Mr. Thackeray's administration, and Mark and his staff were able to rise to the occasion, get everyone together and work it out. So I think we're headed definitely in the right direction. Councillor Cox, Mr. Thackeray.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Pat. Thank you, and thank you to council for working through this. I know it's been a challenge for everybody, especially new council. Thank you for your support, and thanks to Colin and to EPCOR and to the staff. That was awesome. Thank you, Pat. I know the staff really appreciate that.
You're welcome. And if I could just add one thing, all of council were basically emailing each other at different times throughout the Christmas holidays, trying to find a time when we could all get together as quick as possible with admin and staff to try to bring a resolution to this. So I was really impressed with getting everyone together as quick as we could at that time. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make one little point. Again, I also agree, all the cooperation that's happened. But so in order for us to direct residents to your CC forums, would it be beneficial for us on our personal or our Facebook pages to direct them? Basically say, get the information to the town through these. Yes?
I think you're right. I think that's the most accurate way for people to get information, and also the most efficient way to get their concerns addressed, and then the staff will deal with it right away and respond in a timely fashion. It's the best way. Councillor Montgomery?
I wanted to thank administration and as well the operators for, working hard to kind of address this problem. And I want to thank the public as well for, kind of putting up with this issue. I know it's been kind of tough on everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Mr. Thackeray, did you want to add any final things? No? Okay, hopefully you got the public here and Mr. Metz, is it, I believe? Thank you. I thank you for coming and speaking. I hope you got some of your answers. And have you seen the communique that was out on the town Facebook page? I did, yes. Okay, thank you. So that wraps up that. We'll go on to 6.2, the 3rd Avenue streetscape. If you're looking in your agenda, it's page 11. Mustafa? Thank you for coming forward, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Your Worship?
Yes, Ms. Sawatsky.
I'm just wondering if council would be amenable to moving item 6.4 forward on the agenda. So we do have members of the public here for that item. Thank you.
I think that would be a good idea. Would that be all right if you just hold on just for a bit? So we're going to go to the taxi bylaw, the first aid requirement, page 15. And Mr. Trent West is stepping forward for this one from Protective Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. At the last regular council meeting, there was a presentation that was made by one of the taxi firms in town with regard to the requirement for first aid that exists in our bylaw. The comment with regard to liability and the inability to be able to effectively deal with first aid was my initial research. So I did the research, and as Councillor Sobel eloquently pointed out last week, I was not able to find any instance where that would even remotely be the case of liability. In your package, I have added from the Legislative Assembly of Alberta, the Emergency Medical Aid Act, and I've highlighted the pieces that indicate that are pertinent to this particular issue with regard to causing liability to occur, which it doesn't. So specifically, a person other than a person mentioned in Clause A voluntarily rendering emergency first aid or assistance that is rendering at the immediate scene of an accident or emergency is not liable for damages or injuries to or the death of that person alleged to have been caused by the act or omission or his or her part in rendering the medical service or first aid assistance. That's the Alberta clause, and it's a protection to act clause. I've added Saskatchewan in below just so that I demonstrate to you that I looked at more than just one. It is the same consistently across the country, and both provincially as well as federally. I do also want to add that actually I think I have included it later on. So I researched the liability piece, and I want to put that to rest. There is no extended liability for providing first aid in any way, shape, or form. The Good Samaritan Act used to be the protection in the province of Alberta. It's now the Emergency Medical Aid Act. And like most legislation, it's intended to extend a prescribed way of being, like any other law. A prescribed way of being, like speeding, and then there's consequences for speeding. In this particular case, it's a protection to act, right? So it encourages people to not sit idly by while people are in need of first aid or care or attention. It encourages people, and because of this protection, which has been tested in court across the country, not very recently, because all of the tests in court have been 100% of the time not upheld. The court and government wants and recognizes the need for us to act and support one another in a time of need, and has extended that protection 100% of the time. So the liability piece, I've removed that as an issue that was brought up last week. However, doing so while I was involved in this process, I also reviewed our bylaw against other bylaws. And you'll see in point 2, I've compared the taxi livery limousine bylaw of the town of Strathmore, and based on a number of other bylaws that I looked at, not just in this province. Again, I did my research outside of the province. I found our bylaw to be very good and current to the standards or expectations similar to other municipalities in other provinces and also in our province, including the City of Calgary bylaw that I looked at as well. During my research, I also identified a couple other things that were identified in most of the bylaws that we don't have specifically identified in our bylaw, but may be on the chief inspector's checklist for licensing at the end of each period. And so I've just highlighted a couple of those things that are on other bylaws, like roadside hazards, first aid kits, seatbelt cutters, fire extinguishers, are commonly found in most of the other bylaws, or they are part of the inspection process. Right? So I just wanted to point that out. And lastly, I did talk to, I submitted a question to the Insurance Bureau of Canada. Unfortunately, they still haven't gotten back to me, so I can't comment any further than my comments here. So I concluded in the report for you as council, and my recommendation is that council supports administration in upholding the bylaw as it is. However, I also also ask that council support administration and offer a one-time extension to meet the requirements of the taxi bylaw for this company by February 23rd of this year, as opposed to January 31st of this year, so that they can get the first aid CPR requirements that we have laid out in our bylaw. I'm open to any questions.
Okay, thank you for your report and for being so clear in your search and in information finding. Councillor Montgomery.
Like when you compared the other like bylaws, and you say that it is current and in line, do you mean that other municipalities mandate that taxi drivers have first aid?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And do you know roughly, I guess you probably will, do you know the cost of getting a first aid designation?
I'm going to say roughly $50.
Okay.
It depends on where your service provider is, or who you bring in. There's a couple of organizations here in town, Safe Blue and Global, that's close by. They do courses every day.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Corbeil?
Which ones did you look up? Because I couldn't find it. I actually did a little bit of research too, and I couldn't find them in very many of the other places that actually required first aid.
Yeah, so I thank you, Councillor, through the chair, Councillor Corbeil. I looked at Calgary, I looked at a couple in Ontario, and a handful in BC as well.
Sorry, can I follow up with that?
Yes, you
actually?
can, Councillor
I just
Corbeil.
looked at a few of them, like even that are about the same size as us. Like we're not close to Calgary.
Right.
I did like Leduc. What other ones did I do? I pulled up a few, and I just couldn't find any that required it. I'm not going to say having first aid is a bad thing. I think it's sometimes, I'm not sure, in my opinion, it's a bit extreme to mandate it, especially, I don't know if any of our bylaws, like, do we, like, I think it was Councillor Bauer, like, do we make sure that all of our employees, like, for a town, do we all have first aid?
Through the chair to Councillor Corbeil, we would be required to meet the minimum requirements of occupational health and safety, of course.
Yeah.
So there are requirements for a certain number in any facility, any organization. However, I hear Tracy saying yes. So community and protective services, all of those, absolutely, and our operators in public works as well. So, yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I wasn't sure about that. Like, I didn't know the rec centers, like, I wasn't sure if it was one of our policies.
Because we have an opportunity every single day to come across someone who may be in need, it is a reasonable expectation by a municipality and as an employer to have as many, if not all, of their employees trained to a first aid CPR, if not for their fellow worker, but the general public that they come across day in and day out.
I think Councillor Montgomery was first.
Trent, I guess I'm looking for your opinion. Could you comment on whether you would recommend that we make all public-facing businesses mandate first aid, and if not, why not? Like why should a restaurant not make all their servers and everybody know first aid as well?
Yeah. You know, people, I don't want to be biased because I could jump right in and say, yeah, in the business that I'm in, everybody should have first aid. But it becomes exceedingly difficult to expect other companies or businesses that aren't regulated by the municipality to have mandated expectations. In this particular case, because it's council's responsibility for the safety of its community, and the Municipal Government Act delegates taxis, liveries, services, limousines to the municipality as a bylaw. So you can choose to have that type of business in your community, but you have to regulate it, unlike other organizations where provincial operating authorities regulate and mandate the requirements. This falls to council to regulate and mandate. Other businesses don't fall to council to regulate and mandate. So the extension of safety, therefore the public trust is council's and not other businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe most businesses have certain occupational health and safety anyways, where they're mandated by cores to provide so many members of their team have to have first aid as well. But I question your $50 for first aid because I just looked at Global Trainings and their emergency one is 183, and then their standard one is 184. So, is that what they're required to get?
It does last for 3 years. Yeah, it's not per
Okay.
year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's, and I apologize, Councillor, we do ours internal.
Right.
And so we bring in an instructor, so I don't know what Safe Blues is either.
Yeah, I just looked up Global Training,
Yeah.
so yeah, it is about $185.
Yeah.
And then the research, 133, so it's still up there too.
Yeah, so your first time, and then, and it's 3 years.
Okay.
And then you recertify, and it's still 3 years. But, so it's $60 a year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Just moving forward, if I could just ask Brenda, are you a little more comfortable with the idea that the liability is not necessarily going to be an issue on you?
Well, I phoned Checker Cab in Calgary yesterday, and I phoned Associated, which is another big cab company in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
And they had told me they don't require their staff to have first aid. It's optional for them. If they want it, they can have it. But otherwise, they don't have to have it. It's not one of their policies to have. Because I said, is it going down to liability? And they said yes.
Okay, so they obviously still have the idea from wherever that the liability is an issue, but it appears that it isn't that way as far as a liability concern for any of the companies. That being said, I imagine there are some communities where there isn't a first aid requirement, but are you comfortable with the fact or with the idea that we can give you an extension to help you in time-wise to get the first aid done for your drivers?
Okay, here's another question. It's like liability again. I wasn't gonna bring this up, but, today I had an incident in the cab today. The lady was fine when I put her in, got halfway by the crayon school. She had a stroke. I rushed her to the hospital, because I was only around the corner. Time the ambulance get there, I'd be at the hospital. I ran in, asked one of the nurses or doctors to come out and help me. I think she had a stroke, her lips going down, and they said, no, you gotta call an ambulance. I said, I'm right outside your door. They said, no, we can't.
Yeah, that's something I wouldn't know why that would have happened. I'm not.
So you're expecting us to have first aid when a doctor won't come out or a nurse, but I can pull into their, the ambulance parks when they bring patients in. I can park in there and they'll help me. But outside that door, they won't help me.
Well, it sounds like you did everything that you could do as a person driving the cab, and you did what a responsible person would do. So liability-wise, you'd be fine in that situation. I think as far as moving forward, we're still considering this idea that the first aid can only help your drivers. It's one more factor that's going to keep people safe. It's actually one more marketing thing you can use in your company, that you can say your drivers have first aid.
Like the city is 60% bigger than us. They don't require it for their cab drivers. Yes, no, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So I did look at the Calgary bylaw, and it did say that it requires first aid, so, of the drivers. Now,
Now, sorry, if I can just interject, that being said, I phoned Calgary and I talked to a lady and she said this was one of the ladies who was involved in the taxi regulation, and she felt that in her view, there wasn't anything in bylaw, but if you found it, then.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's current unless it's changed. It
Mm-hmm.
was 2015 was the document that I looked at, and that was what I got online. And I looked in Vaughan, I looked in a handful of municipalities in Ontario. And, yeah, it was a reasonable expectation and requirement.
See, and they told me no. Half their drivers do not have first aid, like, I don't know how many drivers Economy and Associate have, and they said, no, they don't need to have first aid. They said if you want it, you can have it, but otherwise, they don't recommend it, to have it.
Counselor Cox.
Like,
I'm just wondering if it's in a bylaw, but it's just not enforced.
Well, see,
Could that be the problem?
Absolutely.
see with iPhone, the Liberty, where they get their permits, they gotta go through this course. Is it Liberty?
Livery?
Livery,
Okay.
yeah. That's their bylaw. It's
Yeah, they
referred to
gotta
as the
go through
livery
this
bylaw.
course and that, and I asked them, like, you go through a 3-month course, then you get your, they do a criminal check for you, and they do your abstract. And I said to them, okay, when I do this course, do I acquire first aid? And they said, no, that's up to the owner of the the cab companies in Calgary, if they want it. It has nothing to do with us. It's up to the owners.
And yeah, that's correct. It's, the brokers are required. The brokers are the companies such as Economy or Yellow Cab. So it's a requirement of the broker to have their operators have first aid.
Counselor Cox?
Again, it would be a matter of the company itself is required to have it. As long as they can prove so many people have it, then they pass. The problem being is it is in the bylaw, that's what we're seeing. It's just not being enforced. So again, we're encouraging you to do it, but if you don't, you'll be going against our bylaw and you'll open yourself up.
That's where you're forcing me to go down. Because I will not have drivers. None of them want to get it because I had one driver look everywhere into his computer at home on his days off, and he could not find anything. He goes, Brenda, I can't. And that one word you put into the paper there, he even looked underneath that and could not find anything stating that taxis needed first aid. Anywhere. He couldn't find nothing.
In our body?
No,
Oh, and another,
yeah, like everywhere.
So I guess
That's when
the,
I phoned Checker and I phoned Associate, because they're the big one up at the airport. And they said, no, they don't require it.
so I guess the question back to you is, why do you think it's not beneficial?
Because 2005, first aid had changed rules. And I've talked to tree cutters, I've talked to landscapers, I've talked to other business. And they had said when it changed in 2005, and I talked to first aid instructor, and she said, they all said in 2005 that the law has changed. You don't have to, if you get it, you do not have to use it.
That's true.
And you don't have to use it. So, like if I have 3 cars in front of me, they all pass the person that fell, so why should I have to stop?
You don't.
No,
No, you don't.
I don't. So what's the point of having it?
I'm wondering if I could look for a little direction from admin or legislative services as far as going forward. Right now, the bylaw is intact as it is. It requires first aid. In order for anything to change, it's got to come forward as a motion anyway, does it not? And that can't happen here unless we, okay, so what we can do is collect information, which we've been trying to do for a couple of meetings now. We're trying to do what's best for our residences and for our residents, and I know you feel this is a hardship, so I guess all I can say at this point is, we can give an extension for now, we can look at it again, we can talk about it, and
I'm trying to search everything to, you know, to have something, if it's chosen, like my driver, Pat has been looking everywhere.
Counselor
and
Sobel?
can't find anything.
I understand, thank you.
I was just going to recommend that this come back next week, Your Worship. At that time, we can make a decision as to whether we want to extend or we want to remove that item from the bylaw.
Okay, I think that's wise, because this is an information gathering, question asking meeting tonight.
Yeah.
And then the regular council meeting is something where we can bring this forward again and look at it. I will say, I know I can echo Councillor Corbeil, and I appreciate Mr. West's comments. I did some reading too. I wasn't able to find it in Lethbridge or Airdrie. So I understand your frustrations, and I understand you feel this is a hardship and it's difficult as far as your drivers. So we want to make the best decision we can. So we're going to go away one more time. I know it's frustrating to wait a little longer, but we do want to make a good decision for your businesses, your business, other businesses, as well as our residents. So if you can just be patient a little more, we'll look at it again and we'll talk about it.
Okay, like the bylaw, my vehicle inspections are done on the 31st. I don't want to get inspections done on my vehicles to get a taxi permit if it's not going to be dropped. I'm not going to waste $200 to get vehicles inspection on 5
Okay, and I'll turn to Ms. Sawatsky again as far as direction moving forward with the current existing bylaw.
So, Your Worship, our next council meeting is on the 24th, so if council wants to discuss the matter, that's before the deadline, before inspections need to be done on.
Okay,
on
so
the vehicles
Brenda, I know
themselves.
it's a pain to ask you to consider coming back once more, but we have one more council meeting before you have any kind of inspections or anything, so.
And I have counts, like Golden Hills Division, I gotta tell them, I gotta give them some kind of answer, like, so they can find somebody to transport those children to school every day.
Okay, you have until the 31st, though, as far as this bylaw concerned. So we still have time to deal with this
Yeah,
if,
but I gotta at least give them 2 weeks' notice to find somebody to transport these kids to school.
Councillor Bauer, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to ask, how many drivers do you have and how many vehicles?
I got 7 drivers, 5 vehicles.
Okay, thank you. As far as dealing, is there any way to deal with this issue tonight? We could come out of committee of the whole, but then you would have to look at that bylaw again.
Yeah, Your Worship, there isn't, because the bylaw needs 3 readings, and you need a bylaw before you in order to
Right.
approve it, and you don't have that at this point in time.
Okay.
It would have to come to the next council meeting.
So all I can do, Brenda, is tell you that between now and the 24th, we'll discuss it, we'll look at it, and we'll see about bringing it forward again to try to be as fair as we can to the taxi companies as well as to the residents of Strathmore. So if I can just reassure you again, you've been heard, we understand your frustrations, we know you feel it's a hardship, we will consider it again, and we'll think about it as we look at the 24th meeting. That's the best I can do for you tonight, because we can't legally do anything to change anything tonight anyway, because we're in committee of the whole right now.
Yeah.
So it's a frustrating process I can see for you, but you're going to have to hopefully just give us a little more time.
Because even like the instructors for first aid have told, there's like the people that go in, you know, if you got first aid, yes, but use it on your staff only. Don't use it on the public, use it on your staff.
No, I can't believe that.
Yeah.
We're getting, I think what's happening, I think what we're having is we're having different messages from different people, different insurance companies. I think Mr. West has found the accurate information in the Alberta Act. So the liability part is not something I think we need to kind of get away from that, because I think you're safe and you're protected with liability. As far as it being a hardship, that's a different issue, and we can definitely consider that in the next week.
So who am I protected under? Not my insurance company.
Government of Alberta.
My insurance
It's provincial
company.
legislation.
Yeah,
The law
basically, legal
protects.
precedent has kind of said that they won't allow people to sue other people for trying to help.
Period.
100% of the time.
100%.
Like, that's how court cases have fallen.
Okay,
You
I'm gonna
can't
still
actually-
do some research.
You can't
Okay.
actually sue.
Thank you.
Research, if I can find something, then I'll come back.
Okay.
I apologize.
That sounds great.
If I can't find
I think that's
anything-
what both of our sides have to do is again, one last time, go away for a week and see what we can come up with, and put our heads together.
Okay.
Worship,
Counselor Cox?
could Trent give her a copy of that Emergency Medical Aid Act? Can you give her a copy of the Emergency Medical Aid? Thank you.
Sure. I think that would be great. It would give you something to take a look at and hopefully give you a little peace of mind as far as helping people in your business.
Okay,
So thank you very much, Brenda. Thank you for your patience.
so next Wednesday?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Brenda. Okay, that brings us to item 6.2, Third Avenue Streetscape. It's been an interesting night.
So, good evening, Mayor and Council. Today, on behalf of Infrastructure and Development Services, I'll be presenting the Third Avenue Streetscape. So in this presentation, we're just going through some ideas that our consultant has come up for the Third Avenue. Our goal for the presentation itself is to get your input for the Third Avenue Streetscape, see what your guys' vision is, and we're going to incorporate your ideas into our concept plans. So the first concept that they have, or idea that they have for this area is basically identical to what you see on Second Avenue. You're going to have your plaza areas, benches, greenery. You're going to have about the same size sidewalks and everything like that. The parking itself will be angled on one side, parallel on the other side. Currently on Third Avenue itself, the first block is angled parking and parallel on the other side, but the second block is all parallel parking. And as you see on the next slide itself, this kind of gives you an overview of what your intersection will look like. Again, like I said, it'll be identical to Second Avenue, so that's a pretty easy reference right there. The second concept that they have come up with, or idea that they have put forward itself, is you still get your plaza areas itself. The biggest difference you'll see between concept 1 and concept 2 is the sidewalks itself. The sidewalks itself are a lot bigger. This idea and concept itself, it's more of a walkable space that you get. The biggest difference you'll see between the first one and this one itself is on this one they are suggesting that we do the parallel parking all the way through on both blocks. And again, here it's just an overview of how it'll look like. As you see itself at the intersections, you get the greenery, 2 lanes, parking on both sides. You can see the sidewalk length on top. It is much bigger than the first one itself. And the third concept that they have come up with is basically more of a green feel. So you get a lot more greenery. You get the larger sidewalks as well, but that's just to incorporate the greenery that's there. Parking remains as you see in concept 2 with parallel all the way through for both blocks. You get a semi-plaza area, but it's nothing compared to concept 1 and concept 2, right? And then if we go again to the cross section itself, you'll see again the intersection will have more of a planters and everything like that. Once you get into the actual core of the road, you'll see that there's more trees and greenery all the way through. So our when we were doing the design for all this, the one thing we did incorporate is we did use the dually as our design vehicle, just because we are in Strathmore and trucks and dualies and everything are more common than what you would see in the city of Calgary. And what we're looking is for your comments, and we've come up with a couple questions just to guide you. We'll get some ideas from you guys and see where you guys want to go with it.
Just before we discuss those questions, are you looking to verbally discuss the questions, or would you like something in writing from each counselor as far as each of these questions?
Well, we can have a verbal discussion right now. So
Okay.
the video will be up, and then I'll just reference the video when I'm. making my
Okay,
notes.
thank you. Counselor Sobel?
Thank you. A couple questions before I get into some of your questions.
Okay.
Do we have the same width on second and third?
So the width itself is located on there itself. Give me 2 seconds and I can get you that. I don't believe they're the identical width. I believe third is just a little smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we went with option one, I would assume that the sidewalks are going to be a tad smaller.
Exactly.
You know, I don't know where I am in the questions, but I really do feel that the sidewalks are of an adequate size on Second Avenue, and I'm very impressed with the size of them. I would, from looking at this right off, I'll tell you right now that I'm leaning heavily towards concept one. But the other question I had for you dealt, and I might be a little early for this, Mustafa, but it was a little further down in your report, you deal with stall size, which is a question that I think one of the 5 magic questions that you had.
Yeah.
And I'm still confused about this, but what is the present width of the angle stalls on Second Avenue at this point?
For the angle parking itself, we did have a little bit of an error with the
Yeah.
painting.
No, I know.
So technically, based on our design, it should be 2.75.
It should be 2.75, and
Yes.
it is what now?
It varies depending on the block. I believe the first block
2.68.
itself was 2.75 and 2.7 around there.
2.66.
The second block itself, they had a couple errors there. That's going to be something that we're going to be fixing up in the summer.
Okay, that was thank you for that. That was one of my questions. So 2.75, would that be between Second and Third Street?
That would be between Lakeside Boulevard.
That's 2.75?
I believe so, if I'm correct on that, Ryan.
It's the hill that really pushes that out, because this is where I think it could be a little wider. It'd be nice if they were closer to 2.8,
2.8?
You know,
Because it just seems Second and Third, they seem wider to me. In front of the provincial courthouse?
Right next to
I don't know.
the edge, there's a big space where they're,
Yeah.
we got the angle, right? We had that parking.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think we measured that it was 2.65 and then 2.75. I think we're gonna bring forward some other some information.
Yep.
To council on the angle and the width,
Mm.
and what's the advantages and disadvantages. I think what we wanted to get out of this conversation tonight
Yeah.
was, what's gonna, and this is where we often ask, the first question is, what's the purpose of this downtown? My understanding of the purpose is to get more people to come down. So to come downtown and enjoy shopping downtown and enjoy the downtown with their parking. And will more parking make that happen, or wider parking, better access? Those things, you can't have both, right? But these are the kind of questions we need to answer.
So I know there's lots of lights here, so I'll go very, very quickly. So I think there's 2 other objectives, and those objectives, in addition to trying to get people to come downtown, is to perhaps persuade present residents of the downtown area to do something to fit in better with the improvements that we've placed downtown. Perhaps some paint on their buildings, perhaps some new awnings, just something to carry on from where we stopped. And the third one is of course to attract new businesses downtown. We want to make this a place that's attractive for business to come down. And I think what we've done on Second Avenue is very, very successful in that regard. And I know I know that there's a lot of negative comments in regards to what we've done on Second Avenue, but I'm here to tell you that there's a heck of a lot more positive comments in regards to Second Avenue than there are negative. A lot of people are very impressed. People who were dead set against us doing that are turning around going, and I just talked to somebody on this a couple days ago, sure hope you do the same thing on Third Avenue. And it just absolutely shocked me. So my vote's for option 1, and that's all I've got for I think I've answered all the other questions. Carry on.
Okay, I think Councillor Peterson was next, and then it might be a bit of a free-for-all.
So yeah, if I may comment on that, we're not really voting on the concept itself. It's just what we're looking to see what your guys' ideas are and what you guys would like to see in there, and we are gonna build those concepts based on the ideas and the comments you guys have.
Thank you, Mustafa. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that while I would echo Councillor Sobel's thoughts on the positives, I think that there's lots of learning after Second Avenue. And if I had to take from what I understand from the business community, particularly, one of the things I think they appreciated tremendously seeing the plans before they went in. They were less appreciative of the fact that they didn't see the changes to the plans coming back through. So I think that's something that's an easy fix and easy to bring to them. The second thing is that people in the downtown businesses that were told that they should be cheerleaders and not detractors were not very happy. And I think that taking them seriously is a good thing. And the other thing that I think we can learn is that maybe do some more consultation around the kind of trees that we plant. Possibly, crab apples are not the best choice. And so that's part of that greater consultation process. And, once we have a proposed plan, I think that it'd be useful to have their input as well as ours. I think that one of the things that I'm most disappointed in is that we haven't been able to get up the process around destination marketing, and we haven't been able to promote development and marketing. And, I have so little interest in the 0.5 differences in parking. I know it could be, my son with his dually would disagree passionately, but, and I just think there's such a much, much bigger issue here around taking this opportunity to promote development, to promote marketing, and to focus on who will visit our town in terms of that, of how we market that. I don't think that we've maximized that opportunity in the way that we could and the way that we possibly should. I think that another consideration, a great consideration, is that there's things that we can do differently, especially because of the formation of Third Avenue. We can mitigate the circumstances that impacted the amount of shopping that was lost. And I think that we can do that very, very simply by you did a great job on Second and under very difficult circumstances, and the businesses themselves recognize that, and it's very appreciated. On Third, there's lots more opportunities to build pathways, even do some cobbling, that could be permanent in between the walkways between Second and Third Avenue, and bringing them over so that there's opportunity for access to those businesses. I like the idea. I have no problem with any of those, other than the recommendations that I have. But for me, on Third, just because of the width of it, and because there's different widths, more greenery, I think would be ideal in that area. The opportunities that we lost on Second because of the structure, we don't have the same impediments on Third.
For sure.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So you brought up a lot of good points, and both of the directors here brought up the same points that you did. And unfortunately, with our timing last year, we tried our best to do as much public consultation as we can. But that is our main concern this year, to really hit the public with all the information we can and try to get their comments as much as we can.
Steph, is it possible that we could have a consultation here on one of our committees of the whole with our downtown business population?
I do not see why not.
It's a great idea.
Or,
Your Worship, absolutely. I think, and I think it's no shame in not in admitting it. Consultation. There wasn't enough consultation last year. Probably more to the point, there wasn't enough meaningful consultation. It's not meaningful consultation when staff bring a completely finished product to the public in a sort of boring, staid open house, and say, look everybody, look at this, make your comments, but it doesn't matter because the design's done. Shut it down at 8, eat some stale cookies and call it a night.
Live and learn, though.
That sort of traditional model of open house, and I have...
That's quick.
Yeah. Personally,
Well,
I've probably done.
we gotta own it, right? I agree.
I've probably done 100 of those in my life, and you kind of get what you get in. So I think that notion of bringing businesses and doing more interactive consultation and more meaningful consultation earlier in the process, and that's part of the reason why Mustafa hasn't presented sort of complete concepts yet, because we want to be talking about ideas and how everything fits together, and we want to have this conversation. We did this with DDRC last night, and one of the suggestions was to reach out to the chamber to do this as well, and to have this meaningful conversation with as many people and as many groups as possible before we start locking down that design and making the decisions that cost a lot of money to change.
I think if I may, one of the things that, one of the learnings is, this is why we're in front of you now, in January, before we get further down the trail, so we can just get the dialogues going, like the guys said. It's one of the learnings from last year, we were trying to get a lot of things done quickly, we were reacting, we weren't, I say, creative and strategic.
Your Worship, as well, if I just may make one comment as well, with regards to timing and the impact on businesses, this will be should be a shorter construction process, because a lot of the time last year was spent on the storm line. In this case here, there is storm under Third, so it will be a quicker process and hopefully a lot less impact on everyone.
Do you have a start time that you're looking at?
We've already started, actually.
Oh.
We got the survey done. It was last year when it was nice and wet, when all the snow melted there. I got EXP to the chamber to get it surveyed. We have that. We don't have a consultant online yet, but we have the information. We're getting the sanitary sewer cameras. The staff have started with the concepts here, but a timeline in terms of getting things done. Not exact schedule. We're trying to fill out this year to figure out if we're on the right track and how big we want to go.
Yeah, I think if I can echo Councillor Peterson, and we want to have these consultations, if it's here, this is a great location, we should do it as early as possible, because before we know it, spring is here anyway. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you. Merrifield, just to follow up on that idea, Ms. Swatsky indicated one time that a really good format would be, roundtable discussion in this. I think that would be.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Sorry, Councillor Bauer.
It's okay. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Ms. Safa, for the report. I really like concept number 1 because it's identical to Second Avenue, and we've had such great feedback with regards to Second Avenue. Especially love the plaza areas, and I like the feedback from Councillor Peterson, that she said that we should add more green space. One of the values I have is sustainability, environmental, and walkability with this area. And I've definitely seen a lot more walkability with Second Avenue. And I also really like her suggestion of connecting the pathways between not just having to go around on the blocks, but maybe interconnecting them somehow, if that's possible. With regards to the quality of stalls or quantity of stalls, we are going to more of an aging population. I don't know if that is a factor, but I did remember yesterday that we did say that we would have the same number of handicap stalls. Can you confirm that?
So basically, we for the handicap stalls itself, what we are trying to do is keep the handicap stalls on the street itself, not on the avenues. Just being that the avenues are a lot busier. So, and the other thing with the handicap stalls, when they are on the street, everybody knows where they are, right? So, the number of handicap stalls, are they going to increase? There will be a few more, I would say, so yeah.
So I just say that consistency is key. And then the other thing is there a cost difference between concept 1, 2, and 3? Is 1 more expensive than 2 and 3?
We haven't gone into those concepts yet.
I guess the issue, the cost differential is, I hope all council, I know you all go through up in town here and walked around. The street currently on 3rd Avenue between 2nd and 3rd Street is parallel on both sides. And there's a big difference between 2nd and 3rd is there's driveways. So those driveways make angle parking not as efficient, right? So that's one of the issues that we're gonna run into in terms of cost and stalls. So we have to have an entrance in, you can think right beside the FCSS, the guy drives in, angles and drives back out. They get angle. So there's options that the designers could do to help that. Maybe we put the angle on the other side, we put parallel on this side. We do different things, right? On the side that you go for between second and third, there's a lot more driveways. There's 2 into co-op, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 on the other, 4, 5 on the other side. So when you have those, and you have those entrances and you have angled parking, that doesn't work very well, right? So these are things that when we talk about, when staff was asking these questions about the number of parking stalls, we're gonna have to make some choices of what we want as a community. And number 2, on the consistency. I know for a fact that we can do from Lakeside Boulevard to 2nd Street, we can match 2nd Avenue. But going from 3rd to 3rd over, it's not gonna look the same because of those driveway approaches.
Is it possible to take
So
out some
the
of those
question is-
driveways?
Yeah, so.
No.
And have access just from 2nd Avenue? No,
I would
okay.
say that's a yes or no kind of thing. We'd have to go
No.
through
So you
the.
have to look
no.
at that, and when you guys, and we'll get to everyone, these are the concepts we want everyone when it comes to the round table, and make sure everyone's walked out, and we'll bring the air photos of the different ideas here, and really think about, so one of the questions is it more important to have consistency, like all 4 blocks the same, or can we have 3 blocks the same and 1 block that's a little different, right? And if it means more green space, and if that's what we give, or more parking or less parking, those are the kind of things that we're gonna be the real questions, and what's important, what's the values of this community. Yeah, there could be a little bit more, depending on how much landscape. If we put more greenery, obviously, we'll have more grades, more, it costs more for a tree than it does for concrete. So, but, again, these are important questions. It's more about values and cost.
I think it was Councillor Montgomery next.
I think.
Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Okay, and then we'll come back through here.
Okay, I'll keep it quick, I guess. So as we were kind of talking last night, I really like what you guys did with 2nd. I guess we're lucky that considering you guys didn't consult the public hardly at all, that you guys nailed it like that, so good job. And I don't think we should necessarily get too hung up about you really nailed it, so good job. I don't think we should necessarily get hung up on matching 2nd exactly. I think if we just match the style, I think that's kind of good enough. And I think we should try to keep as many parking spaces as we should. And then I guess the other thing as well is, like I said last night, the more greener we can get, the better. If we can fit in a few more trees somewhere, awesome.
I want to just point out it was a, sorry.
That's okay, go on.
I just want to point out it was a team effort. It wasn't just me. So I'm sorry, it's nice to get them, but it wasn't just me. It was a whole team itself. So it was a whole department that worked on that. So.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Hi, thanks for the report. It's really good. My one concern about some of the angle parking on the one is like it's small car only. Like there's not a lot of room. So if you're going to increase at all the sidewalk, like it's tight and not just small cars park in those stalls.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I would even want to keep that angle on that part of the street. I like it down farther. My other thing was the sidewalks are bigger on some of that area anyway, aren't they? Like especially in front of the old sand store or whatever, like.
Yeah. So that 2nd block itself.
Yeah.
You got a much bigger sidewalk.
Yeah, already. Okay. Yeah, that's my only comment is just about that one little bit of section or whatever for angle parking. I'm not a fan of it now, so.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
So I'm going to pretty much mirror what Jason said. I think I like 2nd. I think parking is an issue, but I'm not hung up on it looking exactly the same. I think as long as we have the same concept, and I agree, more trees is always better.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, for letting me speak again. No, this is not a speaking, this is a question. Is there a possibility, have we discussed the possibility of partnering with Strathmore Centre the reason I say that, I think about that big parking lot and how much impact it has and how great it would be if we had a natural walkway, like a cobbling between Second and Third across that walkway that runs on the west side of that parking lot, and we had some of the lights that tied the two together. I'm looking for opportunities to do that and thinking that, we could be a little bit more creative and maybe there's opportunities to partner with them and to Councillor Corbeil's point about the parking. Seniors will certainly, when that center is up and running and they're capable of parking in that area because they hella hate parallel parking, and they tell me that all the time. But I think that there's a good opportunity for trade-off there.
For sure.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Sobel.
Very, very quickly, in regards to, although I'll admit that perhaps there wasn't as much consultation in regards to Second Avenue as there could be, and while I'm on that topic, I would disagree with Ryan in regards to the cookies, which I found very fresh, actually, not stale at all. But I would comment that, I was present for a lot of consultation. A lot of people wanted to consult with this after the fact, and that's when a lot of the excitement got involved. And I'm hoping that with an opportunity for people to consult now in regards to Third Avenue, that they realize that this is serious, we're going to do something. You got to come to the table. But I would make one point that the design for for Second Avenue was nothing near what the original design was. And the only reason that changed was because of consultation. So I don't think it's fair to our staff to say there was no consultation. Maybe there should have been a little bit more. Maybe I know I had an issue with the diagram that displayed what Second Avenue was going to look like, which was not how it was going to look like. But so there were little issues like that. But you know what? Jason nailed it right on, and there was an amazing job done on that. So somewhere along the line, you guys did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. And as far as me wrapping up, you guys have all spoken. I totally agree with Councillor Montgomery. You made some excellent comments about keeping the aesthetics similar, but to recognize that Third Avenue is a whole different beast, and that we want to keep it similar looking. The uniformity is good, but just address the idea that it is so different. I wanted to clarify from Councillor Peterson, because I was intrigued by your cobblestone. Are you thinking between Strathmore Centre and the CIBC, that road, as far as cobblestone?
No.
the actual parking
What I
lot
was
of-
thinking about would be from across from the courthouse, coming straight across. So heading straight south from the courthouse, that area that runs along the liquor store, the back alley,
Okay.
sort of that area, making a natural walkway, and it would draw more traffic. I think we could draw, the shopping on Third Avenue is getting pretty fine. And it would just be nice to have some.
Like a drive-through
I'm
sort of.
not a planner, but I know that you could do that. I know that you could draw that process into the.
Okay, thank you, that's good. I think that's a really good idea too. It would show that that's a little roadway too. My last thing is, second last thing is if we can get the consultation process going as soon as possible in this new year, that would be awesome. And the last thing I wanted to say question is if the crabapple trees are wrong on Second Avenue, and I've been hearing that from a variety of people, is there an ability to move, to transplant, to use different trees there? Did we?
I didn't say wrong.
There's always chainsaws, we can fix it.
Oh, great.
Sorry,
Councillor Cox.
Your Worship, what kind of tree are they?
Councillor Peterson?
Actually, Mustafa knows much better than I do.
I was gonna say, I don't know the exact type
Are
of tree
they
that they are.
Strathmore flowering crabs?
I think Chuck might know what type of tree they are.
I can't remember the exact names of these trees, but I did talk to the landscape architects involved on Second, and they were chosen specifically because they didn't have fruit, they didn't have a lot of fruit that would fall.
Oh, good.
That was number one, and number two, they're immune to the black knot as well.
Well, that's good then. That's all I needed to know. Thank you, Chuck, because if the fruit is smaller, if there's not as much, then that's going to be great as far as cleanliness. Councillor Cox?
Well, and I'm just wondering, why are they not Strathmore flowering crops?
They're not.
So sorry.
We do have our own tree.
Yeah. So one of the main reasons the tree that we did select, it went through our parks department and the landscape architect. These trees are supposed to be more weather resistant and stuff like that, and prone to salt and stuff like that.
Okay, thank you, Mustafa. Councillor Peterson,
I just,
did you have one
Brian
else?
Code, who has a long and esteemed history of knowing what he's talking about in terms of vegetation in this area, his concern with the crabapple, Chuck's absolutely right. It wasn't to do with the mess so much. He said it relatively minor. And he showed me good evidence that they get fire blight. That's the issue. Not black knot. They are resistant to black knot, but they get fire blight.
Okay.
But he didn't have a huge problem with them either. He just said there's probably a better choice.
So if we can keep that in mind as we consult with businesses and community going forward on 3rd Avenue. Thank you for your report, and thank you, councillors, for all your open discussion. And that will take us to item 6.3, the Strathmore Cemetery Master Plan, and I believe Dan is leading this report. Speak.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So at your seats, you were handed out a lovely drawing of our current cemetery with some ideas. So we're presenting to council tonight a concept of our cemetery. And I have it up on screen there, and I thought I'd just kind of run through some of the stages and some of the ideas presented in this lovely document. So there's 3 components to this plan. The first is our existing cemetery upgrades. The second is our expansion to the west, and the third is expansion to the east. So I'll start with our existing space. In our existing cemetery space, there's a number of things that we asked EXP to consider when drafting this plan. We asked for more columbarium space. We asked for, sorry, my microphone's kind of. We asked for some seating area, some beautification of the current space, as well as space for full-size plots. So when you look at the plan here, the orange, or the C, is additional columbariums that we would like to add to the current space. The U, which is in blue, is cremation plots. And then the green, or the P, is some garden seating areas as well as additional trees. One thing we also want to add to the current space is a monument. So in the section kind of right by the rose garden there, where the big columbarium is, there's a number of, I think I've told council this before, there's a number of graves in that area that are not marked. There's about 15 or so headstones in that area, but that area is actually completely full with graves. There's about 220 individuals in that section of the cemetery. One thing that we thought would be good to do was to erect a monument identifying who has been buried in that section of the cemetery. So that's kind of that little M blue thing there, just east of the rose garden. The other thing that's interesting about the existing space is it's kind of really hard to see. It's small, but we want to put in an information kiosk and a wayfinding area in the cemetery so that we get a number of requests in the office of people looking for individuals. So we thought it would be good to put a wayfinding area in the cemetery. Moving on to the new sections, if we look to the east, we've included a trail connection to the new area. Everything in purple is full-size burial plots. Everything in blue in that area is the cremation plots, which are smaller. We've also included some raised beds and some natural areas with trees and garden. Anything in orange, which I find kind of interesting and I really like, is columbariums. Thank you. Columbariums. So as you notice, in each area, we've added columbariums to the cemetery to increase density. The other thing we've done is add separate entrances to each section of the cemetery, as well as additional parking for those areas. And then when you move to the east, there's also a very similar plan with different burial areas, full-size plots, cremation plots, as well as garden space. On the east side, what is interesting is that A section, which is garden space, that can also be used for ashes. So that's kind of in a nutshell what that means, and we're bringing it to council just to show you and to get your input.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from council? Councillor Montgomery?
I've mentioned this before, and I guess, so one of my main concerns obviously is cost and the amount of money that I guess, the cemetery program loses. So I guess, yeah, I'm hoping that we will, I guess, adjust our costs to balance that, because not only do we're basically, responsible for kind of caring for these in perpetuity, and so there is kind of maintenance costs that kind of, go out decades or longer, obviously, and so I think that we need to keep that in mind. It's not just kind of the amount that, it takes to bury somebody and then close the plot. We also have to keep in mind the cost of maintaining that space for, the foreseeable future, so, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montgomery. Councillor Sobel?
Thanks. I've actually raised this as a resident, and now I guess I'll do it as a councillor, but what is the possibility of getting a watering source in that location?
Your Worship, through the chair, I'm not aware, I'm sorry, I don't know at this point in time. I believe but Mustafa knows, so I will.
Thank you, Mustafa. If you can step forward.
So just in regards to watering and getting all the services, that was one of our questions that we have proposed to our consultants. And we're just waiting for your guys' comments, and we're going to submit all of that to them and get a reply from them.
Yeah, and I don't know that I'm going into like an infrastructure issue. I'm kind of more thinking about a large water source, just something for somebody to get a gallon of water to water their flowers, whatever flowers they put on there. Even if, I don't know if it would be worthwhile to even charge money to do that, but I'm here to tell you that very often you end up at this location unprepared, and it would be nice to have something like that at the facility to be able to use.
So I think there is a irrigation that was done with Strathmore Lakes, and there was at some point some valving that there's some leaking in there that I know Chris had mentioned. This is 4 or 5 years ago that I remember talking to him about it. So I'll investigate into that and see if we can pull it. I don't know if we can pull it all the way to the west side, but I think there might be an opportunity possibly to do it on the east side fairly cheaply with hooking onto the irrigation system and then bringing it into some kind of pond or fountain or something like that.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Peterson?
I just had a few questions. We're going to do anything in terms of maybe upgrading, sprucing up the field of honor that's there, that it could use a little spruce up?
Mm-hmm. So there are 2 fields of
Yes,
honor in the
yes,
cemetery, and that's definitely something we can bring up with our cemetery maintenance.
And then following up from what Councillor Sobel mentioned, certainly something that I hear lots of people talking about. They haul their own water there to care for sites of loved ones, and even if there was some way that we could incorporate a water feature with a pump system, you know, with some kind of a closed system that we use, same as we use for the gardens at Hope Covenant. You know, even something like that, we could probably dress it up, make it look good. And I don't know if there's ever any opportunity for some kind of a washroom behind some shrub somewhere that would be good. And in terms of recoverable cost, one of the things that I was thinking about, I like visiting graveyards a lot. I do it everywhere I go. And I like the stories, but they're never long enough because there's not enough room. And I was thinking, when I was visiting graveyards a few weeks ago, how neat it would be if there was something like an indentation in gravestones that you could purchase, and the town could sell QR codes that we could put in. Or a chip, yes. Or yes, we could do that too, an R chip, yeah, that would work. You have an idea for that? Because then you could really tell your story, and I think it's something I've never seen anywhere else. I think it'd be revolutionary.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Are there any other comments or questions? I just want to leave you with how much I appreciate your report and the work of staff and you as far as this plan. I also like the respect and care that you brought forward to this project, and the fact that your staff, you and the staff, were able to identify that area where there's so many unmarked graves. I think is going to be a nice thing to try to acknowledge those people too. So thank you very much for this. That brings us to item 6.6. Is this the Rose Garden? 6.5. Sorry, administrative inquiry responses, sorry. Thank you. 6.5.
Your Worship, there's a number of administrative inquiries that we have some answers to tonight, so I think everyone's just going to handle the questions as they come up. So if you want, I can reiterate what the questions were, and then we can have the departments come up and answer the questions. So I believe the first one is in regards to the irrigation system, and if a developer wanted to put in irrigation if it was possible. That was from Councillor Peterson.
Currently, obviously they can put an irrigation system that's hooked up to the potable water system, which I don't think is a question in posed. Our current bylaw does not allow for a non-potable potable water system. We will be bringing forward a new updated water bylaw that hopefully will address that issue, and that may enable that to happen within the bounds of council's original past decision about our irrigation system that we did abandon, our publicly abandoned system, obviously, right?
Thank you.
On the water meter at Lambert Village, I think Councillor Pearson, this one was water meter at Lambert Village. Can I obtain information from the CEO, James Zachary? I think this one.
I got my answer on that one.
I think, yeah.
I don't know if you ever had a chance to, sorry, Your Worship.
Okay,
There was just a request for you, and I think for CEO Thackeray to meet with Joe Bratton. And yeah. I think Mel did meet with him. I think he asked for a subsequent meeting. He had some additional questions, and I just left that with you. That was all, yeah.
Thank you.
The next question was from Councillor Montgomery. The question was, is there insurance from committees for councillors? So councillors are covered under the town's insurance policy, so you wouldn't need it from the committees. And in regards to committee members themselves, they are also covered under the town's policy.
Number 4 here, Councillor Bauer. Downtown sidewalks have become bigger in front of the downtown businesses, and it costs each business more to clear. Have we given any thought to this? Yes, we have. We actually took the bulbs out and made them parks, the bump outs. So there is a slightly wider sidewalk in front of the businesses, but we left that under them. But we did take the bulbs out as part of the park, so the people that were in front of the bump outs weren't responsible for clearing off this huge area, just a larger sidewalk that would be for commercial. So hopefully that answers. But I'll answer it anyway. So, number 5, Councillor Sobel. interested in our municipal policies that pertains to sidewalks and new subdivision. My goal is to ensure that we never have, again, concerned about roadways such as George Freeman Trail, which we saw dozens of residents built on roadways. Basically, the pathways along Strathmore Lakes, or not Strathmore, sorry, Lakewood Meadows. We don't have a written policy. It's always just been a requirement for us to make our developers do this. The one going to the west stops suddenly, and that was mainly because they don't own the property to the east, sorry. That's not owned by them, and there's a 5-meter land that had to be given up at the time. So until that's developed, we can't put a sidewalk through there. The one going to the west, it was deferred as part of phase 2 because they're gonna be the next, there's an MR right adjacent to that, and they were gonna link that together, and then they had because of the drainage and the ditch that's there. So I wasn't around at the time why that decision was made, but that's, I believe, the reasons. We do need to, we will be adding this into our, a policy or into our development standards. I don't know where the best position is, but it is something that it has burnt us in the past, and we need to have it written down so it does not occur again, and we will be making those change into our standards for sure.
Thanks. Could I just ask a follow-up on that, Your Worship?
Yes.
So, back to Lakeside
Meadows.
Going west,
Right.
was it going west? That you said they didn't own the
No,
property, or going east?
Going east.
Going east from
They
the
got that
entrance.
piece that, just past the entrance there's that other multifamily site or whatever. Remember the one that was all controversial with the trees getting cut down beside the
Oh,
canal?
yes. Okay, and west, it was deferred?
It was deferred, I believe, because of we had that concept of that, the lift station going in, and also that alternate fire hall thing, so that was still up in the air.
But I'm not quite sure why that would affect putting continuing that walkway, that sidewalk.
And I
Because
believe
it stops short, you know where it stops, it's just as it turns the corner, and then there's probably, I'd say, I don't know, 150 meters?
Yeah.
200 meters to the end of their property line?
And then, no, then the next section in there is gonna be a wetland or MR, right? And then there's a big MR park, so they're planning to do, they came into us last week actually and talked about they want to put a tot lot there, so we'd make them do it when we do that.
All right, well, I'm happy to hear there's going to be a change in policy, because it looks like we're getting burnt again as we speak. I'm hoping that I'm wrong, and I hope that I get to see sidewalks. But you know what? They should never be deferred. That should be the number one priority, is to put those sidewalks in. We're about walkability.
They should be building all their infrastructures to the end of the lots, period. We got burnt in the past on Wildflower, because they didn't do it then, and we can't do that, and it just has to be. And we will make sure it's in the development agreement for phase 2. So we were on, number 6 was related to the snow policy. We'll just defer that to when we bring forward the snow policy. We will be adding 4th Avenue for council's consideration. Ryan, number 7.
My eyes aren't what they used to be. Would it be possible to include discussion on, this is from Councillor Peterson, sorry. Would it be possible to include discussion on sustainable housing, green buildings, future development in our community in council strategic planning? Absolutely, and I think the time for Strathmore to be considering these is really good right now. The municipal development plan, which is sort of the overarching community plan, has to be reviewed every 5 years, and it's coming up for review in 2019. So one of the exercises that staff want to do with council, probably this summer I suspect, would be to really nail the terms of reference on this, and before that review starts in 2019, to work with council to really develop what are the community values that we want to see in this document and how we want them to be manifest. So that's sort of the goal there.
Councillor Peterson, did you want to add?
Yes, yeah, I just have a question. So I've had many questions from a young group of people, young couples, and there's a lot of them, and they're loosely organized. And they would like to bring a proposal forward about beekeeping, having urban chickens, urban hens, sorry, not chickens, but hens. And there's a third one. What was the other one?
Goats.
No, no.
Camels.
Camels are too expensive. I think it was solar gardening if they needed a change of land use. But, so is it useful for them to come to us or for your group to do something and then bring it back? Like, I just don't know where the driving for, they would be happy to come to you.
There are a couple of ways to approach this, and I want to make sure they do the best, because it's always painful when someone comes up with a great idea, they bring it to you as staff, and it kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and even as staff, I hate that.
Yeah.
So we will be bringing council over the next few months. One of the goals that the previous council had set was to redo the current land use bylaw, mostly for administrative reasons. It just doesn't administer at all. So we'll be bringing that to council, I think, over a series of committees of the whole. So it would be fun to tie that to the consultation process and see if we can weave some of that, some of the sort of, we'll call it low-hanging fruit into the LUB process, and then sort of the higher ranking stuff at the municipal development plan.
So they have done some homework. Can I just get them to forward it to you?
Absolutely, and I'm always happy to meet with folks and just to discuss the best venue for making sure that we can take action on this.
Thank you.
So absolutely, forward it my way, and myself or, oh, Chuck's gone home, I tell you.
Thank you, that's
Yeah,
good.
we'll get back to him and roll it in.
Thank you, Ryan.
Your worship, could I just
Councillor Sobel.
want to qualify something, just so it's clear in my head. Are you looking at mandating something like this, or are you looking at allowing subdivisions to do this within certain restrictions or regulations?
I think, may I respond to your worship?
Yes, you can.
I think I haven't talked to them recently, but I think that they are being really mindful and respectful. And so they've looked at many other local town, small town bylaws. And so the ones that I think that they're favoring are ones that would be specific to certain areas, or if they are in other areas, it would have to follow that all neighbors within a certain area would be in approval and all of those kinds of things. So, yeah.
Thank you for that clarification, too. Ryan?
From Councillor Peterson, at what stage of development is the tourism committee? So absolutely, this is one that's kind of sat for a bit. So the goal is to get that ready to go in February, to have sort of the first meetings there with the committee. So that's sort of the timing we're operating on. Probably look to do it, sort of figure out the council schedule and committee schedule in February, get at least an inaugural date that works for everyone, and then have the committee sort of decide its regular schedule there. So yeah, that February is the target date. It's sat a bit with the busyness, but I think now we're finally getting traction on this. I think number 9 was for James.
Yes, the question about the city status, this question, how much detail do we want? There are some cities who've gone through this question, notably Okotoks went through the discussion a few years ago. We could just create a short.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'd be looking for, a cheat sheet, see what Chestermere has done.
Chestermere did it to Okotoks, ran against
Yes.
Chestermere decided to go for it.
Yep.
And the hard part, I think, is the cost analysis. That probably take a bit more time.
I think I'd be just looking for some general information in point form, weigh the idea as far as something we could even just consider, just to see.
Because the first thing that I would see happening is there would be a transition and we would take on more road infrastructure. Which would, whatever, there's so many lane kilometers, because it's not just one, there's 4 lanes. So that there would be a cost to that. That might be worth it. Might be worth getting it done, because it needs to be done anyway.
Well, it's the cost versus earnings. I'd almost be willing to wait longer to have, know what.
Yeah, and I'm not in a rush for it either. I'm not in a rush for it. I just wanted to kind of look at the pros and cons, get a general idea moving forward, what we might be looking at.
We could give you a rough.
And then something on urban chickens would be helpful too, versus rural chickens. Street chickens.
Rural chicken, street chickens.
Thank you, that's good.
I know, I got it. Next question was from Councillor Peterson. The question was, what steps must council undertake to develop an AUMA 2018 proposed resolution in support of dialysis patients? So the deadline to submit a resolution to AUMA is May 31st. Council needs to pass by resolution that they want to submit a resolution to AUMA for consideration, and then administration would draft that up. Council would approve it, and then we would submit it by May 31st.
There are actually two, Your Worship. There's the one regarding support for dialysis patients for in-home support for paying for below threshold water costs, as we have done. That's one. The second one is the issue that Dr. Ward Fanning brought forward, a more pressing one even perhaps than that, around the imaging equipment and challenging the government's 100-kilometer range, where that one is perhaps more pressing. Thank you.
Thank you.
This one's me. So from Councillor Peterson, would the Department of Planning and Development meet with business owner? Oh, you got your finger there. One, two, three, 4 communications on snow clearing, 4 on black bins, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on odor. Those are sort of the big ones, as well as 1 on signage, 1 on newspaper deliveries, 1 on handicapped parking signage, 1 on damage to shed by a city contractor, blue recycling bins, so blue bins, business licenses, and handicap parking signage. Of those, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 haven't been fully completed yet. As well, none of the green cart ones have because they just came in this morning. But so that, just off the top of my head, that looks to be about 80% have been completed already. And I think MEETSA does try to respond to those all quickly.
We respond back even if we don't have an answer, and
Yeah.
respond back that we're working on it.
That's great. Communication's the key. That's really good. Thank you.
So hopefully that's helpful just to give you some idea. Maybe from our survey or something, but.
The survey closed today.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
Just further to the response you gave to Councillor Peterson in regards to the two resolutions that are required. I don't know that there was a notice put in, an inquiry put in regards to the field house and the relationship between us, the school board, and the county in regards to that project. You'll add that?
To apply for an award?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So that would come back as a resolution as well, and then what happens, Jen? Does administration put together a report?
Yeah,
to
so
send-
administration would put together the reports
Okay,
and the
gotcha.
resolution to be submitted. The award is separate from the resolutions, though, I believe.
Different date too, I think.
And the award is already on our radar, and we're working on.
Oh,
Good stuff.
thank you. Shut up.
So does this bring us to item 6.6?
Yes, Your
Is this the, I never
That
promised you
that
a
was the
rose
end of the
garden?
inquiry.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So item 6.6 is Lambert Park Rose Garden. James had to step out for just a minute. What I can tell you about this is I was asked by a couple of citizens who live near the created bocce courts by Lambert, by the library, wondering about the rose garden that was created by the town and if there's a chance to get irrigation water to it. They feel, or they had a question, that there's an irrigation pipe that goes there that has not been utilized, and they're willing to become involved in looking after that rose garden. They feel it's kind of gone into a bit of disarray.
I can answer quickly.
Sure.
Part of the irrigation line they're referring to is part of the Old Town irrigation system.
Mhm.
It was hit when we did the new storm line going through there.
Oh, that's what.
Okay.
And so we did take it out of service, and also it's not hooked up to potable water, it would be hooked up to the irrigation system, so it wasn't replaced in there, so.
Okay. I think they were wondering about that. That might be a bit of a,
We ended up we found the water line, it wasn't in the road, it was actually behind the sidewalk that we had to tie into, so we ended up having to go much farther when we actually did that project in White Lane.
if I give you the contact person, is there a way we can get that information to those people?
Is that Joe Bradford?
It was Doug Risden.
Oh, from Lakeview?
Yeah, from the Lakeview Muse area. It's that private road by the library. There's a group of citizens there.
Because Lambert Village has also asked about it.
Yeah. So I'll get you the information through James then, and maybe we can make contact just to clarify things. Thank you.
Your Worship.
Councillor Sobel.
Is it, would it be advisable to maybe put in an inquiry in that regard to have our Parks Department have a look at that and review that, the care that we're supplying, and perhaps
Sure.
seek some advice as to, I've just heard before, in previous times, that perhaps our rose garden is not in the best location that it should be. And perhaps somebody with a more professional eye should should have a review of that and assist our Parks Department in regards to how to best to go forward.
Okay, thank you for that.
We will definitely do that. I'll bring that to Jolene tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much, and I'll get that contact information. Councillor Bauer?
Would you mind if at this point I asked what the significance of the Rose Garden is to this town and whether or not it was done for a specific group of people?
I can take that question. So my family lives right up the street, and we like to make use of the park, so that's why we should keep it. That's its significance.
That's the significance. Well, we do want to look after you.
I think I have a little bit of
Councillor
insight
Cox.
there as well. They did rip out like a significant amount of trees there, and I do believe that Lambert Village was part of the, like, wait a minute, what are you gonna do for us now that you wrecked all our trees? And so they decided to put in a rose garden. Possibility comes to mind.
Thank you. So that brings us to item 6.7, and for the life of me, I don't have a little title for it. Oh, it's Councillor Cox, good, thank you.
So I was approached by a few citizens asking if the town could possibly clear snow on Strathmore lakes as they do on Kinsman and Grays Park.
So I'll answer this question because it came up earlier. We, on Strathmore Lake, we currently monitor the ice thickness on the lake that we do skate on. We do not monitor it on other ponds, and as those other ponds are stormwater facilities, without proper monitor, we could have weak ice very easily. So it's just adding more work for our staff to go and do that. It's possible. However, Strathmore Lake also has that rocks on the side, which makes it, we could have difficulty with fluctuation.
So just for, for the reason that they did ask me was because there are town citizens on there doing some clearing on their own. Therefore, we almost maybe should either have some signs and/or we should look at monitoring it and clearing it for that section of the world.
Yeah, so we've actually, one of the directions to my staff was to order in some stormwater pond signs that said no skate, like the city of Calgary has, we have standardized signs that says the stormwater facility, no swimming, no skating, all those kind of things. So we will be ordering those in throughout, and that's one of the areas that my parks department will be looking into, adding signs, especially for that. And also, we should have them for swimming in the summer, all those kind of things, so.
Thank you. Are you okay, Councillor Cox? You got a sad face.
Yeah.
Would you like us to have?
Again, they're over there. It's a big, beautiful lake. Is there no way that this can happen?
There's always a way, it's just a matter of resources, right? I can check and see what we can do to monitor that and bring back a report back to council on the possibility of doing it.
I think it's worthy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That brings us to item 6.8, Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had just a quick question, actually, is up in Hillview where we're doing the soccer field, baseball diamond, all that kind of stuff, that sidewalk's not being cleared. It hasn't been all winter. Is up in Hillview where we're doing the soccer field, baseball diamond? Yeah, yeah. I was just curious, like, that is the town, right? That's supposed to be us that clears it? Okay, I'll just tell them to fill that out then.
That's great. Mark, are you confused as to where?
So I think I know which one it is. I'm just trying to remember in my head the actual snow clearing plan for sidewalks. And I'm almost positive that one was on there, but I'll have to double check. And if it isn't, that might be the issue. But I'm surprised it's not done, so I will follow up as well.
Okay, and that's good that we discussed it and you brought it up, and we can also look at a communication form for someone that could send it in. So that'll be good. Either way, it'll get covered. So that, I believe, brings us to all the the items in our agenda. And what we're left at is item 8, and in camera, we need a motion to, Ms. Sawatsky.
Your Worship, I'm wondering if council would be amenable to adding an addition to the agenda under in camera 8.3, item pertaining to local public body confidences under section 24 FOIP.
I don't think, can you do that in committee of the whole?
You would have to come out of committee of the whole.
Okay. So I'll need a motion to come out of committee of the whole.
I so move.
Councillor Sobel made that motion. All in favor? And then we're looking for a motion to add that to the agenda of the in-camera
I so
portion.
move that we add that to the agenda.
You've heard the motion. All in favor? Now, do we have
Motion to go into in camera.
In camera. Thank you for that motion and for saving me. You've heard the motion to go in camera. All in favor? And we're going in camera at 9:25.
Do we need to extend